Hello there, people of the internet. My name is Udu Jagero, and this is Political Headache. Today we are talking about the conclave. Raila is calling for a discussion. Waswahili wanasema tuafikiane, tujadiliane, and then we move forward, correct?
Correct.
And I'm just thinking, when Raila says that, my guest, of course, is Odhiambo, Odhiambo Otieno, who is I think of yourself as a political commentator and somebody who has the experience and the knowledge in matters politics. What is it that, I know you're a PR person, but what makes you a politician? What is your obsession with politics? Is obsession a good word?
Of course, obsession is a good word. You cannot be successful if you're not obsessive about your idea. You must have a level of obsession with your idea. Then will shape. So yeah, I'm obsessive with politics because we are social and political beings in our nature, and that then informs why we need to constantly engage in politics, because politics affects everything. But my biggest obsession with politics, as I told last time, comes from my childhood, where I knew as a boy who was growing up in the slum that our situation was largely because of the political establishment and not because of people not working hard. Because my dad had a degree, but we were living in the slum.
Yeah.
And I thought I would see, we would cross, in the slum, would cross the ditches, which had child defecation and dirty water, basically sewerage, in the road. Garbage was not being collected. Such simple things. The quality of schools in terms of infrastructure that we had in Nyalenda were not very good. And I knew this is about leadership, and leadership is nothing but politics. And that's why I'm obsessed with politics.
Interesting. I love your quote, man. I'm really struggling to have nice looking quotes.
Thank you.
That. It's like it just fits you. It just fits you so well. Everything looks good.
Thank you.
I've got a lot of phobia towards jackets and coats.
Oh, really? Why?
I don't know, man. I find that most of they don't fit me. Perhaps I need them customized.
Oh, yeah.
I want. You see the way it lalas on you really well.
Yes.
Where your shoulder stops, it's where it stops.
Yes.
And then it comes all the way. Everything just looks good. The things comes out. There is no bulging here.
Yeah. Interestingly, after I buy all my coats or all my suits, I have to take them for customizing because I never find my fit.
So
first, I'm drop 18, which is...
What is that drop 18?
Drop 18 is from here to here. Normally, it is drop 16, so they are fairly short. So getting a drop 18 like this one is very
I bought a very expensive suit. And
your clothes are always expensive. Where do you get them from? Like this one you're putting on right now. Who are you wearing?
This one?
Yeah.
I'm wearing somebody very expensive.
And even the kabling you have here.
Yeah. This is from a friend of mine who does expensive jewelry.
It looks like it's gold, is that?
Yeah, it is. It is. The company is called what is it called, Maria? Charm and Rune.
Charm and Rune.
Charm.
Like charm. All right.
And Rune.
All right.
That is. I think there is a packet here for Charm and Rune. I don't know where it is.
Yeah.
But anyway, can we go back to politics then?
It's fine. Yeah. Right.
Gachagua has just said today that there is a lot of rogue people that have been unleashed in the streets to deal with protesters and also to look like protesters. And, what do you think? Do you think that the protests are completely infiltrated, or what is going on?
The government is paranoid. And once a government is paranoid, it behaves like a criminal who is almost getting caught.
Yeah.
And so it's very reactive instead of being proactive. And what we are seeing right now is, of course, I told you last time, we have an inept head of National Intelligence Service who is very reactive on the basis of what I call things that can be dealt with on a normal day-to-day situation, because the protesters or people who are in the streets are not armed. They're not armed, but they are not separating the two issues, because here, the people who are protesting on very topical issues, and one of them is accountability. They're saying, stop killing us, stop the largesse display of life that you guys are doing, stop the nonsense of misappropriation of funds, stop arresting people when they're demonstrating, give us basic rights of just demonstrating. But then the National Intelligence Service head, who is now infiltrating these demonstrations, in fact, is the one who is misleading this whole thing. And I told you that last time. And time will vindicate me that this fellow is confusing these two issues, because there is the issue of legitimate requests in the streets, and there's the question of politics. These two are different, of course.
So when you when you say there are two
different issues, yeah.
Two different issues. So if I understand you correctly,
yeah,
we have people and normal and ordinary Kenyans that are on the streets fighting for their survival economically.
Yeah.
And then what perhaps you're saying is that the other issue is that there may be saboteurs, people who are here to plug onto the real issues.
Exactly. Which is the Rigathi team?
Yes.
Okay.
The Rigathi team.
Yes, the Rigathi team. Because
you think that the Rigathi team are the saboteurs?
They are the saboteurs of this very honest conversation about accountability in government. The Rigathi team has one interest, which is to get to power. That is the absolute
before
interest.
The elections?
As soon as tomorrow.
But how
and even Martha Karua said it yesterday on TV.
But how does that work?
It works because once you have a popular uprising, you can throw out the president.
No, you see what I don't understand with Rigathi Gachagua and a lot of them that are saying that Ruto must go now is that perhaps I think that it would be a good thing if Ruto went. Let's say Ruto went, you know. But how do they take the power themselves? Because what happens if Ruto goes now? Isn't it Kithure Kindiki that takes over power?
Okay, so I think you don't understand something here about politics.
Okay. Please school me.
Yeah. Politics is the only vacuum, only position, only gap where the law does not anchor.
Can you explain that to the dummies like me?
Yeah, politics takes charge of the law. The law does not take charge of politics.
I am lost.
Okay, let me explain.
Yeah.
So in politics, we seek control of the law. That is why where Raila and Uhuru and Ruto operate, they are no longer operating under the law. They're operating at controlling the law. That's why they have parliamentarians in parliament. They can actually move a bill and they change the law.
Okay.
So they're controlling the law.
All right.
Okay. The law does not control politics. The law can only arbitrate politics.
Okay.
In that when there's a dispute between two parties in an election, they then go to the judiciary to seek for. Because these politicians or these politics can also do away with the judiciary. If they form a constituent assembly and say that we don't want the judiciary as part of the government, that's it. The judiciary will not be there. Okay. So politics is the only gap where change actually occurs and not law. Okay? So once you understand those contexts, then you'll understand that Rigathi and his team understand this thing very well, that the next moment they can find a loophole into government, they will be there.
How?
By any means.
How?
Any means. Does the Constitution provide? Yes. Article 1 of the Constitution
says what?
Talks about all sovereign power belongs to the people. Now, how is it carried out? Remember during the BBI thing, yeah? You remember the BBI was cancelled because? By the courts. Because there was no constituent assembly and it was initiated by the executive.
The sitting president.
The sitting president.
At the time. Okay?
But if it was a popular bill or if it was a popular initiative, then there would be a constituent assembly. Let me give an example. This is the Bomas draft when we are clamoring for the new constitution. There were formations, different formations. There was the civil society, there was the academia, there was the politicians, there were the commercial ends, who then met at Bomas of Kenya to talk about the new constitution of Kenya. Okay? So remember there was the Bomas draft, then there was the other draft. I think it was Naivasha or something. The Bomas draft is the one that recommended the parliamentary system of governance. But when people went to Naivasha or something, they changed it into now what we have, which is an imperial president, what we call a presidential system. Okay? So this constituent assembly is what then determines who becomes. Okay? So the constitution is not a permanent formation. The constitution is a living document. It can be talked to. It can be changed. It can be twisted. Okay? Just that it has its own definitions of how it can be twisted. But remember, even the constitution itself can be suspended. I've said on this show before that the military can actually suspend the constitution.
Having said that,
yeah.
how does people like Martha Karua and Rigathi Gachagua and Kalonzo Musyoka, or if we were to expand it, Fred Matiang'i, Maraga, and the lot of them hyenas that are circling out there, it could come in and plant themselves in the situation and say, we are now the rulers of this country.
Okay, so let's say, for example, something happens interesting. God forbid. I don't wish that it happens because I'm not a promoter of anarchy.
Yeah.
That these demonstrators are able to access a state house because they had accessed parliament. And parliament fell on 25th of June 2024. When they access state house and the president flees, that is it. State house is the seat of power. It's like the throne. Whoever accesses, that is why you're always told, if you access state house without authority, you're shot dead. Even if you're just a guest who is walking in and you're not invited, you're shot dead because you must indicate. That's the seat of power. And so when these demonstrators can be able, that's why they always say occupy state house. When they can access state house, the president definitely shall have fell and will flee. Because where will he be?
He can be anywhere and still be president.
No.
He can be Karen and still be president.
No.
It can be in his farm and still be president.
It can never happen. Once state house is compromised, that's it. His town office, Arambe House, people can access it. That has no problem. But this state house thing,
anyway, go on.
Bangladesh, name it, Indonesia, whatever. Indonesia, I think so, sometime back. Talk about Sri Lanka, most recently. People accessed the state house. And once that was done, it provides a small vacuum. And things change so fast when a vacuum occurs. The military is always baying because the military operates in their own, they even have their own codes. They don't operate under the civilian rule. So which means they can even suspend the civilian rule and put a military decree. And that is it. And we go on like that. So in the instance that people access state house and push away Ruto, which is very possible, it can be done. They already showed us that it can be done. What happens next? Then there will be some war. In the evolution of a revolution, the evolution of a revolution, as I said, you first have moderates who are just claiming for change on issues. Then the government ignores. Then it moves to calls for regime change. Okay? Then we have extremists who then join at this moment when now the regime change is being talked about. Now, the extremists are people like Rigathi, who are now seeing an opportunity and they're plugging in because they make the agenda of the people look like their agenda. But the reality is that the agenda is not the agenda of the people. The agenda is to get power and continue doing the same thing that even the current president is doing, just in a different manner, through a lot of concealing and etc. So once this happens, people like Rigathi, who are extremists, get in. Now, after the extremists always set something called a transitional council. If you remember 1978 and 1982, where we had coups, okay? In Kenya, we've had two coup attempts. You will realize that there was a whole elaborate plan to even establish a transitional council. Now, in that transitional council, there is always a representation from the civilian end and the military end. And they agree on when the elections are to be done. That's called return to civil rule or civilian rule. Then, between that period, it's always very brutal, by the way. During a transitional council, and it's always headed by normally the chief of defense forces or some junior.
Are they the ones that are called juntas?
Yeah, the juntas, exactly. Okay. Now, it could also move to a coup. A transitional council could be pushed or can metamorphosize into a coup, where we have a transitional council where we have a civilian ruling or a co-chairmanship between a civilian and the head of defense forces. Then during that period, some junta now, what you're calling a junta, now just comes up and says, even the head of the military is not doing some proper work. We have suspended the transitional council. Now it is absolute military rule, like what's happening in Guinea,
in Burkina Faso.
Burkina Faso, okay? Chad, Niger, you name it. They have absolute military rule, which now does not recognize democracy.
Yeah.
It is ruled by fiat, okay?
What do they mean by fiat?
It means they...
By force.
By
is
force.
Is fiat force?
I think fiat is absolute force. I don't get the correct definition unless I look it up. But I believe it's absolute force, iron fist kind of rule, where whatever the military... Because military operates with precision. Whatever they want is whatever happens. And that is a possibility here. So during that period, people like Martha Karua, Nani can sit in that transitional council because they are the extremists of the world. They look at operating beyond the constitution.
At whose invitation?
At the people's invitation, because you know.
But I think the whole thing is being run at this point by the military. So
no.
At whose invitation is
the
Martha Karua and all these other guys.
Watch how the military is operating very carefully right now. And I've always said that Ruto needs to get the military off the street. Because the military only get to the street by a parliamentary, I think an agreement or an instrument from parliament. And that thing should be timed. But this one for Ruto is not timed. It should be timed that they're only going to be in the street for civilian purposes for this number of days. And they go back to they go back to their military rule. But now, these ones that are in the street, they're limitless. That's very dangerous. That's a loop that is left. Okay? Now, in the period that the military takes over, and this National Council is formed, the military needs the people. That's why the military is not shooting people. When you see them outside, the people are actually receiving them. And even when Ruto first released them into the streets, they were even coming with flags for the country, on their tanks, on their armored cars. They were not shooting anybody because the military needs legitimacy. Legitimacy is what is called the social acceptance by the people. That they're part of us, so they can rule over us. That social contract is very, very important for them to have. So how do they gain social acceptance? What is called now legitimacy. When there's a national council, then they invite civilians to the national council. So this is where another team of extremists comes to be. That people like Martha Karua and Rigathi Gachagua could be extremists.
So they invite themselves?
No, they don't invite themselves. There is always back channel communication. Because once the president is deposed, then quickly, power moves very fast. It moves too quick. You can't understand it.
But it is also a fact or a possibility that they might invite themselves and told not to come.
Also, you know why when they're invited, they will come? Because who owns the men in the street today?
I doubt. I wouldn't say that somebody really owns them. Perhaps just a part of them, but the large population of people that have invaded the streets are not really owned, as I would say, by Gachagua.
So now go to the ideal instance, okay? That the president is deposed by whoever is in the street. Who is the beneficiary?
The person that appears to have brought them in the streets.
And who is this person who appears to have brought them in the street today?
You could say Gachagua, I'm not sure.
Thank you. So that is how politics works. If you want to know who is supporting something, even not explicitly, but even by intention of heart, okay?
Or by egging on.
Just that qualifies them to be beneficiaries of something, okay? So like, for example, God forbid, if somebody kills you today, who benefits?
I don't know.
Do you have a serious rival in Kenya or in Africa or in the world today, somewhere?
I don't know.
So if you had one, then we would say that rival is implicit in your murder.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then what you are saying is that the military is going to say, okay, let's look around at the noisemakers.
Exactly. Who do we bring on the table?
These noisemakers.
These noisemakers. Now, who are these noisemakers today? Answered. So they will.
Okay.
They will invite Rigathi Gachagua and his team because they are the alternative government.
As we speak.
Yes, they're the alternative government. That is why the government is watching them very carefully and not Raila. The focus is no longer on Raila. The focus is on these people. And remember, if that happens, Raila could also switch.
Yeah.
And when Raila switches, what does it mean? Raila will also be called to the table.
Yeah.
Okay? So this military thing or this transitional council then comes to play. And I've said there's a possibility of a junta pushing them out and the military having absolute rule. Then it can take some time, 4 or 5 years, or it can go for 20 years. Libya is doing it, yeah? It can go for 30. Until one day somebody who has the heart or international pressure or whatever compels them to now revert back to civilian rule. Like in Nigeria, Olusegun Obasanjo, who was a military man back then, deposed somebody, another military guy, and he took over power. And then he's the one, because of his ideals, he reverted Nigeria back to civilian rule. So unless you have such a man, Nigeria will still be under military rule today, but it has reverted to civilian rule. So these are possibilities which we're looking at with this thing. And that is why people like Raila are now suggesting something interesting called a conclave, which will not work anyway.
What is a conclave, and who are the parties that are supposed to be in this conclave?
A conclave, by its very definition, is a secret meeting
A secret meeting that has been announced publicly.
No. Conclaves are normally not announced.
But he just announced. Or it is the members of the conclave that you're not going to announce.
Yes. You don't announce a conclave. A conclave is a secret meeting. Like I'll tell you, there's a group in America called the Bilderbergs. Do you know about it?
No. Tell me about them.
Yeah, the Bilderbergs are the ones who control the economy in America. They are the bankers. They're the ones who own the financial market systems in America. Financial systems in America. They're the owners of the SWIFT code. They're the ones who place the sanctions. Okay? The Bilderbergs even participate in choosing the presidents. Okay? They even determine this time Republicans have gone next. All right? Freemasons are also in a conclave. That's why you never hear much about them unless one of them says, unless they embrace publicity, which they have not done yet. And so many more. Conclaves are very secretive. And by that nature alone, conclaves will not work in this country. Raila is calling, I think somebody fed him that information. Because I don't think if Raila in his sane mind will say that we need a conclave, a secret meeting of the few, to go and talk. In Kenya, talking is eating.
Do you think Raila knows what he's talking about?
He doesn't know what he's talking about.
When he says that we need a conclave, does he really know? Because this conclave is going to comprise of who and who and who?
He doesn't know what he's talking about, and on this one, his communication managers failed. What he could have said,
but anyway,
let's have another bombers meeting and not a conclave. Let's have another bombers-like meeting.
Maybe let's cut him some slack on the language.
Of course,
but let's look at what he's trying to say.
Now, what he's trying to say is very, yeah. Context is everything.
Yeah.
When Raila says, I'm calling for a conclave, we cannot push it out of context. He has said, let us go for a conclave. And I'm saying, that conclave is what must not happen.
But it was a press conference. What are some of the things he said, apart from just the name, the word
Of
conclave?
Course. He said many other things, which are very good. He said, hey, when there were problems back then, and we were clamoring for a new constitution, the people of Kenya sat down and agreed that we are going to form a new constitution through a constituent assembly that met in Bomas. And it is time that we discuss an intergenerational solution to the country's problem. Because you're realizing now, I told you before, and I'm very happy that these things are happening as we continue conversing, that we are in a transition moment. And this transition goes beyond just what you see. It is also generational distance. In fact, the generational politics has also shifted in this country. And that's why people like Raila, who are of the old order, are now realizing that actually we must now listen to these young people, these Gen Zs, because they're coming up with fresh ideologies. And remember, states are not changed by old men. States are always changed by young men. Even him, for the multi-party democracy to be, it happened when there were young Turks. It was Raila, it was Orengo, it was Anyang.
How old was Raila in 1990?
We can calculate backwards. I think he must have been in his 40s or 50s. That's fairly young.
He was in his 40s and 50s?
He must have been in his 40s, because now he's 80-something.
80-something?
Yeah, Raila is 80-something now. 81? I'm not sure, or 79. He must be around there.
It's around 79.
Yeah, but also, that is ID age, yeah? His real age, because back then people used to backdate ages by 5 years. Yeah, no, these are realities. We're not just talking. These are realities. So he might be older than that. But the truth is, changes are not brought by older generations. Changes are often brought by very young people who are idealistic. And to be idealistic here, what do we mean? It is seeing the world as a perfect setting. Like, for example, these Gen Zs are saying, we need jobs. Jobs must be provided, because they don't understand why they were told, go to school, there's free education, and actually they're products of free education. Go to school, after school, you'll get employment. If you study hard, you'll actually get very good employment. Then now, they've finished school, they're not seeing employment. Then they're being told, the government is the one that's not giving you employment. And they also know that if the government creates an enabling environment, then the private sector grows. And when the private sector grows, employment opportunities expand. So they're going with the idealistic, what we call the textbook description of how politics works. Okay? They want better healthcare. What is better healthcare? It means that they can go to hospital and actually get medicine, get treatment, get good customer service, which now people don't get. But now we can also appreciate.
SHA is working.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say, that now there's something that is actually giving, which is, for example, SHA. It's now taking care of people's needs in terms of medication. These people, they need to see accountability in politics. They don't want to see people displaying largesse of politics, like buying a watch which is worth 10 million, buying red bottom shoes, displaying donations of 20 million, 30 million, whereas people are still suffering. They don't want empty talk or rhetoric talk from politicians abusing each other, because they were taught very well. And this generation is actually better. They're not pretentious, because they were told this is how life needs to be. And they're following that very script. So we cannot kill our children for educating them on how life is. Okay? So when they're making this claim, Raila is appreciating that, hey, these children, they can actually bring change. And we need to sit with them. But the children are saying, we don't want that conclave of yours. Because we know what you always do. Raila's history is also predictable, and we must give it to him.
Yeah.
That he has always ended up negotiating. Okay?
Rather than sticking to the script.
And that is not a sign of a good leader. For example, he won 2007 elections. He should have taken power. But because he has a kind heart, he ended up negotiating and being given nusu mkati. Okay?
Nusu mkeka kama hii.
Nusu mkeka kama hii. You remember that quote? That's career. Then, come 2013, he knew clearly. I sat recently with, I don't know if I should mention, I don't think I should mention this, but I sat recently with one of the former very high-ranking officials and a friend of the former President Uhuru Kenyatta. And he told me in 2013, this is not 3 days ago, he told me in 2013, they knew they were losing the election. And they won it by a whisker, literally. Okay? In 2017, the court of Maraga said that Uhuru did not win the presidency because the process was flawed. Instead of Raila going for a second round and going for a proper election and defeating Uhuru, he backed out. Okay? When
he backed out because he knew that the elections were going to be sham.
No. He backed out because of other reasons which I've explained here before. In the last episode, I did explain why he backed out, because there was a negotiation that happened. Okay? Then in 2022, okay, we all knew that the problem here was the turnout issue in Nyanza, which then made him not to. And one day we need to talk about how Anyang' Nyong'o and the governors then defrauded Uhuru Kenyatta of over 20 million shillings per county mobilization fee that Uhuru actually sent. In Kisumu, it was sent 35 million. Anyang' Nyong'o only issued 350,000. The rest of the money he ate. Okay? And many others, which we will explain someday. So then we went to the Suvuria, the Live Forever, you remember? The demonstrations. Instead of us pushing to the end, what did Raila do? He negotiated and went to NADCO. NADCO up to now, do you know what the report contains? Have you accessed the report?
No. Is it publicly available?
I think it's publicly available, but do you know it is not? The details are not very public. Okay, the issue of
that was a sort of conclave.
That was sort of a conclave, and remember, even people like Otieno Amolo, Eugene Wamalwa fell off that process because they saw like whatever was going on was not whatever they intended.
Could the conclaves be a way of buying time?
It's always a way of buying time. Of course, Raila is a wise man, and he understands that time heals. So once you create a gap in time, then the narrative will lose steam. And what this country must not lose is momentum. This momentum is very good, because what we have up here is autocracy.
How will it look like? How will it look like?
How will it look like?
How will if say Raila was appealing to who, by the way?
He was appealing to both generations, saying that, okay, fine, there are issues. We need to sit down and talk. That's a good suggestion. I mean, we need to sit down and talk. But the manner in which we are sitting down and talking is what we are saying.
My thinking is, if the school, let's say a high school is in chaos, okay, a boarding high school is in chaos, and the principal or anybody, let's say the PA teacher, PTA, right? PTA, a member of the PTA goes and calls a press conference and say that we need a conclave in this school to chart the way forward. Then I think that once he has done that, the next step is for him to send a letter to the principal telling him that I think you should come for a conclave meeting, and one of the rogue teachers who has been causing chaos should also be sent the letter that you should join this conclave. The head prefect or the one who is in charge of the students, can also be called and told that, look, we are proposing a conclave, and here is the letter, and this is the date when we propose this conclave to happen. We also know that there is a rogue guy who is the dome captain.
Yeah, or the DH captain. Those are the most rogue people I've ever seen.
Yes.
Yeah.
You are also sending him the letter and telling him that, you are also invited, because I think in the conclave. So you see, you have called a press conference, talked about a conclave, told people that we need to meet. But how intentional are you after the presser? What I'm asking is, who is Raila sending these letters to?
He's sending these letters to the wrong people. Okay? He's inviting the wrong people to an elitist thing. Conclaves by their...
What do you mean there is... What I'm asking you is... Okay, let me rephrase the question.
Okay.
Who should he be calling? Who should he be sending the letters?
He should
Who are the captain of the dome? Who is the principal? Who are the people he should be sending the letters to? Because it is his proposal.
Raila should not bother us with conclave. That's what we are saying.
No.
We don't want a conclave.
No.
We don't want it.
Go with me.
We're not going to have it.
There is one thing...
Yes.
To say that you don't want a conclave.
It's not going to happen.
That is one theory.
Yes.
But let's hypothesize.
Okay.
My learned
you are inviting me to speculate. I agree.
Yes, let's speculate.
Yes.
Hypothesize that, okay, if he meant well and he thinks that the conclave can actually help this country, and I'm asking you, if he were given the opportunity to send out letters inviting people to this conclave, who are the people that you think he should call?
He will invite, not that I think he should call, the ones that he will call.
Okay.
Because my thinking does not affect him in any way.
And then I want to add a note to that.
Yes.
Because I see the direction we are going.
Yes.
I think you're saying the people that he wants to call.
Yes.
But after saying the people that he wants to call,
yes,
tell me the people that he should call.
Okay.
Yeah.
So first of all, the people he's going to call in this conclave, one is President Ruto,
okay,
who is a representative of the government. Two is going to call the religious bodies to sit in that conclave, a representation, and a very chosen representation.
Maybe Sapit, Ole Sapit?
Maybe not. Then he's going to choose a civil society to come into this conclave.
Boniface Mwangi.
Boniface Mwangi or somebody.
Okay.
Maybe not. Then he's going to choose the academia, somebody from the academia to join.
Yeah, maybe if Ndemu had taken up the post of being
yes. And many more. So he would choose such a thing. And they will be selected by his intention, those who he knows will arrive at his decision. Because conclaves by their design are not accountable. That is why, remember the conclave concept comes from the Catholic Church, okay?
Yeah.
Where they elect the Pope.
Where they elect the Pope.
Okay. And who are these people who proceed to elect the Pope?
They are cardinals, I believe.
They are cardinals, okay? They are cardinals who are of a particular age, okay?
Very advanced
and the first thing that they do when they get to the conclave, they take an oath of secrecy.
Yes.
That things that shall happen inside the conclave will not be revealed ever. None up to now has ever understood what happens in the conclave because they take an oath of secrecy. Elitists who take an oath of secrecy. So nobody knows what happens inside there. Is there coercion? Yes, there could be coercion inside the conclave. Okay? Is there bribing or what we call manipulation? Yes, it could be. Because nobody knows what's happening. And we can only think of the worst. Because if it is not transparent, then bad things are the things that are going on.
I love
Yeah. If it is open and is genuine, tell us in the public that, hey, this is the procedure we're going to use. We are actually accountable to all of you. But you call a few guys and say, let's go to a room, close ourselves, take an oath, then sit and talk. Which kind of talking, my brother? Even you know that is not true. Okay? Then one of the other thing that could happen in the conclave is what else? Is maybe being told on the order that this is the order that we are following. This is how the world needs to go. Why does the Catholic Church, for example, sit in that conclave? And we always say, before they go to the elections of the Pope, we always see people who are papable. The cardinals who are papable. But none of them always ends up being the Pope. Have you asked yourself that question? We're told, there is Sijui who from Philippines, who is very popular, is most likely to be the first Philippine or Asian Pope. Then there's another one from Ghana, Cardinal who. Then another one from Italy, etc.
There's another one from Sierra Leone.
Yeah, another one from Sierra Leone. Then you're like, oh, nice. We're going to have... Yeah. Oh, nice. We're going to have the first African Pope or the first Asian Pope, etc. But then, surprise, surprise, what happens? We're having an American Pope.
Who is a supporter of President Trump.
Exactly.
Whose brother is actually an extremist.
Look at that. Okay, so what happens in the conclave? Nobody knows, and that's why we are saying that formula is off, and that first choice of Raila.
So
now we go to the second one. You asked the question.
Yes. I'm gonna allow you to answer that question. But what I wanna ask you is, so you are thinking is that they could go into the conclave, and then we have the religious representation, we have an academic representation, and we have the other guys, from the civil society, and then there could be harsh money.
Yeah.
There could be harsh proposals that are given to them, and then they are told that now that your pocket is full, now that you are completely drunk with the wine that we have served you, let us go and have a press conference and agree that Kenya is ours. We are all brothers and sisters. Let us not allow the country to burn. And we propose that these are the things that we are going to look for. The president has agreed on 1, 2, 3. We have all agreed on 1, 2, 3. And so, Sinivo.
Exactly. And it was not transparent. Whose interest has it served? Not ours as a people. It has managed. You're taking paracetamol for some level of pain, right?
Yeah.
It's just going to like numb the pain for the moment because it's an analgesic, but you're not dealing with the actual issue. Maybe you need an antibacterial or whatever, but now somebody's giving you a painkiller.
Yeah.
Someday it will still reoccur, okay?
Now to the accountable conclave or whatever you want to call it.
So, you asked me 2 questions.
Yeah.
One was, who do you think Raila is going to invite? And then I said, let's go to also the second option of what then should happen in this conclave. Okay? And I'm saying, first of all, there should not be a conclave in the second instance. Or if at all it's going to be there, then these are the kind of people that Raila needs to invite. Let these constituent assemblies or these representations nominate the people to go and sit there. So that the people are not chosen by the person who's calling for the conclave. Because remember, by the time I'm calling for a conclave, I have an idea in my head. I just want it endorsed.
How to move forward.
Yes, I just want it endorsed. I don't even want how to move. I already have how to move forward. I just want it endorsed. I call Jaguero. I call my partner there. I call who else and say, okay, now let's proceed. This is what I want. So how much do you want? Because every man has a price. Okay? And even pastors have prices. Okay? So the second option...
Well established, yes.
The second option is where now we say, okay, you're going for a conclave, but we are going to select the people coming to that conclave. So let's agree, how many units are we in this country? We are 290 constituencies. Or we are 1,180 wards in the country. So we want a representative from each ward to come to that conclave.
180 people.
1,180.
That's too much.
It's not too much. It's a conclave.
That's too much.
It's a conclave.
That's too much. I mean,
1,180 cannot even fill a stadium, my brother. That's number one.
Yeah, but you're trying to get proper feedback and way forward. You're having such a huge crowd.
Yes.
You're going to be having a shouting match.
I'm telling you, it's a democracy, right? It's a democracy, right?
I disagree.
No. We are a democracy.
I disagree. That is too big a number. But anyway, go ahead. Let me hear you to the.
When we are talking about a democracy, as such as ours, we cannot go autocrat, because what we are currently having in this country, we are having a more leaning towards autocracy regime. This called broad-based thing is more autocracy leaning. I hope you know what an autocracy is. Yeah.
You could explain it to the audience.
Yeah, autocracy is governance by an absolutist, somebody who amalgamates all instruments of power and accountability to himself. Okay? And Ruto is one. And now his brother Raila is joining him in that question of autocracy. Because once you have the capacity to shut down the media, you have the capacity to have the instruments of criminal justice in your hands and appoint inept people who you're even accepting in public that actually my PSS and my CSS are inept. And then you are simply disrupting power and establishing your own truth as the truth and not the actual truth. Okay? That's what President Ruto has been doing for the longest time. And now Raila is joining him in that. In terms of even enhancing what is called a way forward. This way forward cannot be done by your own idea. If you're leading a people in a democratic state, allow them to join. And in fact, don't even allow them. It is the rule of the day that they have to sit and decide what affects them. That's why we did away with the provincial commissioners, because they were taking orders from State House. But now we are saying...
But we have county commissioners. Now.
We have county commissioners. What's their job?
They're still taking orders
They're just administrative chiefs. They're no longer in charge of the AIE. Are you aware? That AIE for development...
What is AIE?
Authority to Incur Expenditure. Development budgets, etc. It's no longer in Kitambo. Any development in the division in the district used to be authorized by the DO or the DC. Contractors will be paid by the DC, and if you go to any DC's office, yes,
for what?
For development projects. All government departments were taking the development budget from the development money from the DC, and it will come in cash. All the previous DC's
what
offices.
Development? Building of cells?
No, not cells. This is why, initially, we were having education, health, everything under the national government.
Okay.
That the construction of everything that was going on there could happen, but the monies would be paid by the DCs.
Your cap actually looks like the DOs.
No, come on. This is a nice one.
The color.
It's almost.
Yeah.
This is the last time I'm coming with it here.
It looks very modern.
Yeah.
But if you look at you remember the
yes.
It was really round.
So those guys, that one of theirs is actually a bakul. You know a bakul?
Yeah.
A bowl.
It was like tough.
Yeah, it was a colonial regalia. It actually still is a colonial regalia.
Do they but it's no longer worn?
They wear it during occasions, even the chiefs. During it's called ceremonial one. They put it on during celebrations, national celebrations.
But these days they don't go around.
They don't go around in it, yeah, of course, because of course people have moved on from the colonial era.
Okay, go ahead.
So anyway, so the DCs are the ones used to authorize monies to come to the people. In terms of every government department would go and collect their money from the DCs. And I was saying, if you go to the original DC's offices, you'll find safes that have the money inside there. Okay. Now we move from that to the governance system, where we democratically elect you, and there's an assembly to hold you to account on what you're doing that is right or that is wrong. Okay? And so we are saying, in that context, this discussion that Raila is initiating must be done within the confines of democracy. And democracy dictates it's a rule by the people, for the people, and what else?
By the people.
By the people. It's not a rule by a person. It's a rule by the people.
I was actually thinking that he would choose people from the Gen Z.
You see, that's the challenge. We don't want him to choose.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah, don't choose for us. We respect, you're the father of democracy. You've said, this country is democratic. We need to lean toward democratic ideals. So let people come. Call the people to come. Okay? Let's do a public participation and say, okay, 290 constituencies. How do we move forward? These are the proposals. So you can form the baseline. Through Parliament, you can say, hey, Parliament, sit, agree. Or now we are going to form this Constituent Assembly. Okay? And the Parliament drafts a bill or something that then proceeds to be an act that then establishes this Constituent Assembly, that then moves to sit, and it says, invite the following. Let us have a representation from each and every of the 290 constituencies, or each and every of the 1,180 wards in the country. Number one. Number two, we need a representation from the religious side. We have the SUPKEM, that is the how do you call it? The Muslim side. Then we have the NCCK, which then combines all the churches. Then we have the Catholic bishops, etc. All that, choose. Then we also have cultural leaders and elders. You're aware.
My problem with the direction that you're going and how we choose these people is that they are not in the conversation. Like, for example, when is the last time that SUPKEM came out and gave a press about the situation in this country?
There's a theory in communication.
No.
Allow me to answer you.
Because I am thinking, and you are the one who is coming around and shooting yourself in the foot. Mm-hmm. Because I think that the agitators are the people that should come and talk on behalf of the country. When is the last time the NCCK came out and did a presser?
And that's what I'm telling you, that Raila has called for an intergenerational conversation. So the agitators are the Gen Zs.
We have the religious community.
Just a minute.
Only Olesapit is the one who has been coming out and talking. The SUPKEM, I don't know whether we still have the SUPKEM in this country. I don't know whether we still...
They're there.
Where are they?
They're there.
Yeah,
Wako.
But the thing I am worried about...
Evangelicals...
And this is you. This is you who is In fact, I am hanging on to your word.
Yes.
People who are not constantly speaking, what are they coming to negotiate? What problems do they have? So what does Supkem is drinking soup.
When you see a quiet river, a silent river, you must question yourself before you cross it, okay? Silent rivers or still waters
I understand.
run deep. Just listen. When Supkem is quiet, be very worried.
Why are they quiet?
When NCK is quiet, be very... Why? Because the evangelicals took over from the campaigns, you remember. They were inviting this president everywhere. The evangelicals, what we call the Protestants, okay?
Yes.
They're inviting this fellow everywhere. And he was in church every other Saturday and Sunday, okay? Did you see the Catholic Church inviting him all over? No, they never used to invite him. So they became the noisiest. They even had excursions or whatever at State House. So once they took over the conversation, that's what I was trying to explain for you, that there's a theory in communication called the spiral of silence theory.
The spiral of silence theory. What does it mean, sir?
It dictates that the person who has the loudest, or the person who has an opinion and is loud about it, wins or controls the narrative. So those ones who have better opinions, they go and keep quiet with it because somebody else is loud about theirs. And the more it continues, the more that thing spirals, the more the people with alternative opinion do what? Shy away. So could Supkem be having alternative opinion that is unpopular? Yes. They're shying away. Because the evangelicals at that time were saying this country is by God, for God, and everything like that, yeah? But that is not the way to govern a nation. This is not a religious state. This is a secular state where we have...
Is it?
Yes, Kenya is not a religious state. Kenya is a secular state.
So then why are we having a church in State House?
There's always been a church in State House.
Why, if it is secular?
It's always been there.
Is there a church at the White House?
I don't know. I've never seen one.
The American government is secular.
Of course, it's secular. Should we have had a church in State House? No. Should we have prayer room in State House? Yes. Because if you even go to these cafeterias, you realize that there is a prayer room for Muslims, for example. Should we have them there because everybody goes there, even Christians like me go there? Should we have a prayer room there? Yes. A prayer room, but not a church. Because but it has always been there. What Ruto is simply trying to do is to maybe modernize it, but we should have the conversation and say, how many religions do we have in Kenya? Should we have a church? No. Should we have a prayer room? Yes. Because prayer is homogeneous. Okay? If you say church is only for Christians, so you're secluding the rest. So when a Muslim president comes to be, for example, Joho becomes president, he will need to build a mosque there. Okay? Just have a prayer room. State House is too huge. Just have a prayer room.
And then if a Hindu Gita guy comes, he wants to do a temple.
A temple. So that's the conversation. Yes, establishing an altar for God is important. Altar for God is homogeneous as well. Everybody respects an altar. Even right now,
do you think that then Ruto is hijacking the country and turning into a Christian nation by building a 1.2 billion church in State House?
He is. He is hijacking the nation. He is doing something that is very wrong, but also understand the history of Ruto. Ruto came... Can I tell you how Ruto came to power?
I know
it's
that
too
it
long.
was in 1992.
Do you know how he started even operating around those guys?
No.
Do you want to know?
He was praying for them.
No, he was praying for them. Exactly. Ruto was one of the people who were preparing tea and meals for Kena Jirongo. And he used to bring the food, and for the YK92 that is. And before people start eating, he would pray. And when Moi one time chased these people away because they came to him drunk, this YK92 team, he told them, the next time you're coming here, you must come here with a pastor. And what did they decide? That one boy who was delivering meals to them and praying for them, they said, that's going to be our pastor. And they made Ruto the pastor. And so the next time they went to State House. Now, this is true. The next time, you should call Jirongo and have him here.
But Jirongo has refused to come here.
What do you mean?
I've never...
Have you reached out to him?
There is a guy who wanted me his number, and I asked the guy, and he said Jirongo said no. But I don't think Jirongo said no.
No, he can't say no. Jirongo is an easy guy. Okay, I'll get him for you.
Yeah, please.
Easy. So, this fellow, the president, used to pray. Then one time when they went back to visit President Moi, they went in and the first person who talked was Ruto, and was, let's pray. Akaomba. And understand, after that prayer, Moi picked him and went with him to a private room for 30 minutes and talked to Ruto personally for 30 minutes without the rest of the YK92. Then he came back with him, na wakaendelea kuongea. Nobody ever knew what President Moi talked with President Ruto back then as just a normal student.
Yeah.
Okay? And that is how Ruto joined this issue. So his background is Christian fundamentalism. Okay? He's a Christian fundamentalist because he used to be a chair of CU in the University of Nairobi where he was studying botany, I think. Okay, a Bachelor of Science in Botany. All right? So this fellow has a background, a strong rooting in Christianity, which then makes him a fundamentalist Christian, which he is trying to move on with even to the state. That is normal. It's called upbringing or growth biases. So he has a bias towards Christianity and not towards secularism. People like us who are in SDA, for example, we appreciate that it's not only us. There are so many people, because if I become the president, or when I become the president of this country someday, am I going to establish a Seventh-day Adventist altar in the State House? It is wrong anyway. Long and short of it, it is wrong. He should not do it. And if he's intending to do it, he should stop and turn it to an altar. Nobody will say no to an altar. Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Odhiambo Otieno. It's always very nice chatting with you. So next time we are talking about, I'll tell you what we are talking about, because it's going to be very, very interesting. But perhaps we could start with the idea of the church.
Yeah.
And what I've always wanted to know is how Christians and all the faiths can come together and help with the running of this country.
Interdenominational council. Simple.
Thank you very much, people of the internet. Always nice. Please consider subscribing to this podcast. If you want to come and discuss politics with us, you are always welcome. Sometimes I would let Odhiambo just bring a guest and they can discuss whatever they want. So please consider subscribing. Hit on that notification button so that when we have a new video out, you can always see it. Until another episode, bye for now.